All right, today is December 3, 2020. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. Today on the agenda, we're going to go over the 1.20 planning spreadsheet. The latest milestone just happened, which was the code freeze and docs freeze. The release is upcoming on the 8th. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get an end of quarter update for each one of these items and see where they are, what made it, what didn't make it. In addition, if you have any items that you'd like to discuss, please feel free to add to the agenda and we'll discuss them after the planning spreadsheet. Link to this agenda document is available inside the invitation. So with that, let's jump into the spreadsheet and start getting status updates. Excuse me. First item is from Hemant, CSI Online Offline Volume Resizing. Hemant, updates on this?
We don't have any new update. The last update still holds true in the next release, which is I think 121. We'll work on two items, at least the allow volume expansion moving to PV and copying it to PV, and then the node secrets that still has to be decided in the CSI community meeting. So yeah, and then the third item is the recovering from resize failure. We had some progress, but at the same time I see that the inline pod resizing discussions are still like unfolding, not quite there yet, and that's what we were asked to follow kind of. So I'm just waiting to and try to get a consensus on that one in next release.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Hemant, for that update. And I'm going to go ahead and mark both of these as started, and we'll move them over to the 121 milestone. Next up is Snapshot, Xing.
Yeah, so we have been making good progress. So the at metrics explorer to snapshot controller PR just got merged last night. So the E2E test is for the metrics is submitted, but that one we have to wait until the branch is open to merge that. And also the PR that handles certification rotation for webhook is also merged. So the next one we're trying to get in is there's a PR update controller based on the VBAN snapshot APIs. So that's being reviewed, just need to get that one merged. And then we also need to update the client Go module to V4. I think, yeah, so I think after that we should be good to cut the release. So we're getting close.
Sounds good. And let's keep this as started for now. And then next cycle, we can finish it off and mark it as done, hopefully.
Yeah.
Cool. Next item is non-recursive volume ownership, FS group. Matt, Jan, Hemant, anyone have an update on this?
Yeah, this was done, and yeah.
Okay, so PR merge test made it in, so complete. Let's go ahead and mark that as done. SE Linux recursive permission handling.
I'm very sorry. I haven't progressed on this one at all for a whole quarter.
No worries. So should we go ahead and move this to 121?
Yes, definitely. Okay. I hope it's going to be better.
Sounds good. Okay, and these two items were also need to be moved. Next item is issues related to assuming volumes or mount points. So last status here, or I guess last status here was PR was merged. Anything additional to add here?
Done.
I think one PR was merged and we had to okay, let's see. Andy's PR was merged, and that's fine. There was one more PR that got merged, but we had to revert it because it actually caught a bug in the volume manager. So we need to go and fix that bug before we can try to remerge this one.
Got it. So sounds like move to 121. And we'll mark this as started. Next item is storage capacity tracking for pod scheduling.
Yeah, no changes were done for 120 in this release. We got clarity on, oh, well, that's the other line item. So no changes there. I would like to add perhaps that I started working a little bit this quarter on running the external provisioner alongside each node, which wasn't originally part of that spreadsheet here. But it does touch on this capacity tracking a little bit, because there was one part in the cap about that particular way of running it, and it looks like we'll have that implemented for 120.
That's external provisioner running alongside each node?
Alongside the Csi driver on each node, so no
Okay.
central component anymore. That's useful for local volumes, because then the Csi driver really remains fairly simple. It just needs to manage volumes on the local node that it runs on, and the rest is handled by external provisioner.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you for that update. We'll go ahead and get that moved to 120. Next item is PVC inline ephemeral volumes and then CSI ephemeral volumes. Patrick, you want to give an update on both of those?
Yeah, this quarter we basically froze, or didn't do any further development, but we had one important meeting on the API questions, and the conclusion was that for the generic ephemeral inline volumes, we continue as planned with the same API. So that is something that I intend to work on for 121 now. In the same meeting, we discussed how to proceed with CSI ephemeral inline volumes and agreed that the API needs to be revised. Specifically, we want to move the top level entry in the volume source structure from CSI, which is also a bad name for it, into something that is a bit more or a bit more obvious about what it is. I don't remember what we agreed on, but it's all in the tracking issue in Kubernetes enhancements. There is one enhancement issue for CSI ephemeral inline volumes, and I summarized basically the next step in that issue. I need to point out that this particular line item needs another owner, so I won't have bandwidth for both the other two items and this one. So in 121, if nothing happens or no one else steps up, it will remain in beta with the current API and no further progress will be made. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think Matt Carey may be able to pick this up. Once we do the planning for Q1, we can sort that out. All right, thank you so much for those updates, Patrick. Next item is spreading over failure domains. Shing?
Yeah, so this might still depending on the next one, the volume group.
Yep.
Yeah, and the volume group one, I haven't got a chance to update that yet, so I will get to you next week.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move it to 121.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. next item is the CSI drivers that are common. So the Iscsi Driver, and then Fiber Channel and Flex. For Iscsi, we found an owner. For Fiber Channel and Flex, we couldn't find an owner, so we're planning to deprecate those. Michelle, you want to give an update on these?
Yeah, I plan to do this week.
Okay. Is that the case for Iscsi as well, or?
No, I haven't made progress on Iscsi.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move that one to 121 and see if we can find an owner for that one. Okay. Next up is moving out the Gluster Nfs Provisioner. This was completed. I don't think there's any further work that needs to be done here. Moving out the Nfs Provisioner.
Sorry, were the image builds done?
That is a good question. Let's ask. I'm going to take a note and follow up offline with Humble. Okay. And can we get an update on Nfs Provisioner?
Right. So I got some help from Michelle on how to proceed with the image building on this one. Plan to work on this in this month. At the same time, there's actually a community PR that came in for the NFS Subdev project in image building via GitHub Actions. Wanted to check here if that's something that we want to proceed with, or should we go with the cloud build that's done on other repos.
So at least with cloud build, we have the proper credentials set up to push to the Kubernetes repo. I don't know if we can set up the right credentials through GitHub Actions.
Okay, so I think I'll then go ahead and split that PR into taking the multi-arch pieces, but actually set up where the cloud formation. I'll work with the contributor on that one.
Sounds good, thank you. And that was both for both NFS?
Yes, I think both of them
good.
are going to be there.
Perfect, thank you, Karen. All right, copy that, and we'll get another status update on that at the next meeting in 2 weeks. Next item is Valium Snapshot namespace transfer. Ben?
Wait, did you say my name?
I did, sorry, yes.
Yeah, this is not my thing.
Oh yeah, Mike, my bad. I still have you in my head for everything related to namespace transfer. Mike, are you on the line by any chance? It doesn't look like he is. Anyone have an update for namespace transfer? I think the conclusion here is no update.
So I am curious just because I don't think this is that big of a deal. Like, has much progress been made on this? Like, is there a proposed approach? Have we gone anywhere?
There is a new cap that he submitted
Okay.
some time ago, but after that, I don't see anything. After
I should go read that cap, because the mechanics of doing a namespace transfer don't seem that weird to me. It's just like, how do we want to expose it in a way that's not going to create a nightmare? That's the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, security implications are what I worry about with something like this. Like, as long as an administrator is doing it, it seems totally harmless. But it was the intention. Does anyone know was the intention to expose this to non-administrators?
That's my understanding. You can actually request a transfer, something like that.
Oh, so the idea is a non-privileged user in one
I think so, but
namespace.
I haven't read it for a long time.
Okay, yeah, we got to go back and look at it again. All right, sorry.
No worries. So we'll go ahead and get that moved to 121. Hopefully more people can take a look at it. So the security concerns are legitimate. So that's probably the biggest angle to look at this from. Next up is the CSI Volume Health Initiative. Xing, any updates on that?
She's still working on that. I think there were some CI issues he's trying to get resolved. So
Got
we need
it.
to update the release tools to handle those. So I think it's just still debugging.
Okay. Okay to move this to 121?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll go ahead and mark that as started. Next up is generic populator data source, Ben.
Yeah, so I did not make a ton of progress on this in November. In October, I had we started up the series of meetings to design this, and those have been going well. And this week, I have been making a lot of progress on this. So we're aiming at 121 for this. In the course of working on this, I managed to find a bug in the provisioner sidecar, and I have a new PR that is already up for the controller, and that will handle populator CRDs. I'm working on the new sort of sample populator implementation. And so, yeah, all that will come together in the next few weeks.
Awesome, good progress. All right, cool. We'll make sure to get that moved over to 121. This is going to be super exciting once it comes together. Next item is Cozy. Srini, Sid, Jeff, anyone want to give an update? Anyone from the Cozy project on today? Okay, I can fill in for them. They're pretty much the same status as before, good progress in coding. They have their weekly design discussions. There was an active discussion last week, made some good progress there, and this will continue into 121.
I'll add to that a lot of the recent discussion with this one has been around the downward facing interface of the sort of the application facing part of Cozy. That's where we're struggling the most. I think all of the provisioning and lifecycle management for buckets, everyone seems pretty happy with, but we're churning on the application facing part of it.
Yeah, this was an interesting design where it has kind of API at, down, up, and to the side, up towards the user, down towards drivers, and then off to the side towards applications.
Yes.
All right, next item is FS Group Support and CSI. Christian Huffman, are you on the line?
Yes, this was merged. It is finished.
Awesome. On track for 120. And so can we mark this complete?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Everything's done.
Perfect. All right, next up is CSI migration work, vSphere. Divian, are you on the line? Looks like the last status update pretty much captured it. Xing, is there anything else you want to add?
I think that's still the same.
Yep, makes sense. So we'll go ahead and get this moved to 121. Okay, next up is Azure File. For Azure File, the last status was bugs need to be fixed. And he has a number of PRs. Michelle, any updates on this?
Azure File, let's see. This is migration.
Yeah, CSI migration, Azure File.
There was a major bug found at the last minute, so we missed the code freeze deadline. Andy is continuing to debug the issue, and we'll have to target this for 121.
Perfect. Thank you for that update. Go ahead and mark that as started and we'll get it moved. And then from the GCE side, we have no updates. We're going to pick this up in the 121 release. OpenStack Cinder, we were looking for an owner here. Hemant, I think you mentioned you were going to try to look for an owner for this. Any luck?
Yeah, so it's this is what we were talking about in the last update, that if the Cinder OpenStack team within Red Hat doesn't come up, then this will be owned by like us, actually, me, Jan, and Fabio. So we'll have an owner for this one.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll go ahead and move this to 121. And then Ceph and CephFS and CephRBD. I need to follow up with Humble on the status of this. My guess is this will move to 121. Okay. Next item is, the next set of items are co-owned between SIG Storage and other SIGs. The first few are co-owned with SIG apps. The first of which is an issue with PVCs, where stateful sets create PVCs, but when you delete the stateful set, the PVCs are not deleted. It would be nice if they were auto-removed. This was a design that KK was helping us follow up with SIG apps on. KK, are you on the line by any chance? Or anyone else have an update on this item? Doesn't look like he is. So last few status updates were, I think KK was planning to get back on this and provide an update. We'll go ahead and move this to 121. I don't think we made this into 120. Next item is volume expansion for stateful sets. And Hemant, correct me if I'm wrong, but same thing here, move to 121.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have execution hook. Xing?
Yeah, so Shanchen and I talked about this briefly. I think we need to discuss about this again among ourselves, and then we can set a meeting with Tim.
Sounds good. So we'll go ahead and get this moved to the 121 release. Thank you, Xing, for the update. Next item is sizing an empty dir memory-backed volume as minimum of pod allocatable memory on host. I don't recall seeing this one before. Looks like Derek is working on it and Hemant's helping.
Yeah, this was done.
Cool. Next item is a ask from SIG Architecture to move our mount library out from Kubernetes utils into a standalone repo and have that repo be replicated in the staging directory. Serini was helping with this. Last status update was ran into some problems and needed to revert the C advisor change. Will continue after 120, so we'll go ahead and move this to 121. And final item was with SIG scheduling prioritization on volume capacity. Michelle, any updates on this?
Yeah, this did not get done, so we're moving it to 121.
Perfect. So I'll go ahead and mark that as started as well, and we'll go ahead and get that moved over to the 121 spreadsheet. Looks like Xing has already created a new tab here. So we can go ahead and get started on populating that. Moving back to the agenda, before we continue, I had a question for everyone. In the next meeting is in 2 weeks, which is December 17th. Do folks want to do the Q1 planning session for the 121 release on the 17th of December, or should we wait until we come back? So on the 31st, I'm going to be out, which is the subsequent meeting, and it is a US holiday, New Year's Eve. So I imagine folks may want to cancel the 31st.
Yeah, the 2 weeks after the next meeting are both probably people will be out due to holidays.
Right.
So it would be 3 weeks after that one before we could realistically get back together.
Yeah, so if we skip the 31st, the next available opportunity would be the 14th, which would land us into kind of the beginning, or like almost halfway into the first month of the next cycle. So I was thinking if we do our planning session on the 17th, it'll set us up well for Q1, and then we can, on the 7th, when we reconvene, we can come back and reassess and re-add items as needed. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so proposal here is, let's see. So proposal is December 17 for 1.21, Q1 21, and then December 24 canceled. Actually, not 24, it's 31. Canceled. And then the subsequent one would be January the 14th, I believe. Let me double check. Okay. Okay, anyone object to this plan? Okay, if that's the case, I'll go ahead and cancel this 31st meeting, and we'll convene on the 17th as usual and do 121 planning in the next meeting. Okay, with that, I'll hand it off to Ben to talk about a new idea for PVC annotation handling. Ben?
Yeah, so Saad, do you remember I've been bugging you about this for what, 2 or 3 years now?
Oh, yes.
So there has always been a desire on the part of multiple vendors to allow users to like specify some per PVC option to override some default behavior on a per PVC basis. And the CSI spec never provided a way to do that, and for good reason. And so it's created this tension where, you know, if you want to develop some sort of a new feature that requires the user to sort of specify some per PVC option, you end up having to like do something really awkward, like stick it in the PVC annotation and then have the CSI plugin like go read the PVC annotations and, you know, to sort of prototype some new feature. And we had talked about the potential of just like taking the PVC annotations and merging them with the storage class parameters and passing them all down every time you do a crate volume. But like that creates real problems in terms of, you know, the possibility for conflicts, the possibility of user overriding the administrator's intent, the fact that administrators may not like that idea entirely. And so I've been, so I basically kind of gave up on this a while ago, but I had a new idea a couple months back when I was looking at the extra metadata option on the external provisioner. The idea is this: I would like to add a new command line parameter to the external provisioner sidecar, which lets you specify a prefix, and then only PVC annotations that are have that prefix would be packaged up and sent along to create volume alongside the storage class parameters when you do a create volume. And I just wrote up a PR in the last 30 minutes and pushed it. If you want to look at it, it's very small and it implements this. It's a PR 535 in the external provisioner repo for anyone who's interested. But basically the idea is this avoids the problem of any kind of conflict between the namespaces of the storage class parameters and the PVC annotations, because you would have to have some prefix that would follow the model of other prefixes where you have some sort of a name.name.name slash annotation name and then a value, where that name would be some sort of vendor domain name presumably. And it also addresses the issue of administrators wanting to disable this, because the administrator can just modify the sidecar container definition to not specify this prefix, and then the sidecar won't pass anything down. So it puts control in the hands of both vendors and controllers to turn this feature on. Sorry, vendors and administrators to turn this feature on if they want it, and it addresses this need for people to sort of prototype things in PVC annotations without many of the problems that we've had in the past. So I just wanted to sort of throw this out there to the whole group and see if people hate it or if people think this has any promise at all, as being a way to sort of let you optionally pass down some PVC, per PVC options when you create your volumes, and that in a way that they get all the way to the CSI plugin and it can act on them.
I think my opinion on this remains the same, which is this is a pattern we should discourage because of the portability concerns. And
So yeah, to be clear, it does sort of cut against the portability concern. But the idea is there are a huge number of users who the portability concern is not something that they are specifically worried about, because they're both the administrator and the user of their particular Kubernetes cluster. They know which CSI plugin they have, and they want to enable some sort of functionality. And we know, I mean, I'll tell you, our CSI plugin already does the thing I mentioned earlier today, where we just go read the PVC annotations ourselves, and it's just kind of gross. So it's not that people can't do this today, and it's not that it's a good thing to do, because as Saad mentioned, like, this is an anti-pattern, but there is the very strong demand to let users specify per PVC options that the CSI plugin can act on, and I can't think of a sort of a less bad way to enable this.
It might sound evil, but I feel like the kind of icky things that you have to do to make this work are a good thing, because it forces the driver vendor to realize, should I be doing this? Because it's not a standard supported thing. But I worry that if we do provide a standard way of doing this, like a flag, then it becomes oh, well, it's a supported feature, of course I'm going to start using it. And I like the way that you put it, which was, this should be used for prototyping and, trying new things. But I worry what it's going to end up being is we'll end up with a set of CSI drivers that require the use of this flag. They won't work without it. And we will end up with a generation of CSI drivers that are effectively they don't support portability. And if I put on just a pure vendor hat, that's not a bad thing. It is completely okay if you have workloads locked in to my storage driver.
Yeah, so, but this doesn't change the status quo in terms of, people are already doing this today in terms of using PVC annotations to trigger vendor specific per PVC behavior.
I agree. I think the difference is kind of it's a psychological one, right? It's hey, I'm doing something that I probably shouldn't be, because I have to do all this icky, weird custom stuff to make this happen versus, oh, this thing is supported out of the box. So like it must obviously be okay.
Yeah,
Like, I guess
wonder
the one thing, say, like, you know, people who are writing applications like MySQL, Postgres, like they're able to take advantage of the portable API and only write one manifest and supply that to all users. And it doesn't matter what platform you run on, that manifest still works.
yeah, I mean, that's the portability guarantee, which is really valuable. It's just that there are some users that don't care, and they want to, you know, get at vendor goodies, and you know, the pressure to provide those goodies is immense. And so yeah, we do the gross thing and read the PVC annotations.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. And I think in the past, what we've said is, you know, if you find functionality that isn't currently supported today, instead of trying to like poke a hole in the API and make it work, let's work together to figure out how we can introduce, you know, real fields, API changes that would enable that to happen. If
So,
that means adding something to PVC, that would be on the table as well.
So let me compare this with or contrast this with the extra create metadata flag that also exists on the external provisioner plugin, which does something similar. This is a Boolean flag, which if you turn it on, it causes the external provisioner to pass down the PVC name and PVC namespace and the PV name to the CSI plugin. For what reasons I can only imagine. But that option seems to be in the same vein, where like somebody needed to do something outside the CSI spec, and so we added a hack that is defaults to off, but it's there to enable some presumably useful behavior.
Yeah, I was dragged into that, kicking and screaming.
Okay, I mean, I see this as being more in the same vein as that, where it's not great, but if it defaults to off and it doesn't cause any major problems other than the psychological problem you mentioned, I like it.
Yeah, no, I completely understand kind of where you're coming from. I had the same exact concerns with the extra metadata flag. It was the, oh, people are going to abuse this to, you know, do things that are outside of, or that are going to violate portability. But I think the argument that was made at the time was, you know, we're not passing in the actual PVPVC. And, you know, if anybody were to abuse this, they would have to go out of their way and actually go and write code to fetch these objects. And so I think the primary use case here was just using these as to decorate the volume objects that were created to say, oh, this volume was created on behalf of PVCX. The intention was not to say, oh, let me go fetch PVCX and pull annotations off of it, even though we realized as we were doing it that it would open the gate for that.
Yes.
And that's, you know, that was one of the reasons that I pushed back on it. So
if I may, as a driver author, I use the metadata exactly for what you have for basically logging. The only variation on that is that annoying stateful set problem with, you know, PVs being deleted, that I use the I kind of guess the stateful set name from the persistent volume name.
Got it.
Ooh.
What else am I going to do? Any suggestions?
No, I mean, when you're down in the trenches, you frequently end up with these weird sticky problems where it's like, oh, if only I just had, you know, some extra information, I could solve this better.
Right.
So yeah, I come across those, not that specific problem, but you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So what I'm hearing, Saad, is that you would prefer to just make this hard, simply to discourage it.
Yeah, I hate to be that person, but yes, it's an anti-pattern, and I'd like people to work harder to make it happen rather than make it easier.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I just wanted to
we
sort of
don't have
propose
a
this.
like
Go ahead.
I feel like we don't have a clear criteria to say what extra metadata that we can accept. That was why I'm kind of concerned when I see that PR to add this extra metadata in external snapshot. So just to follow what is there for external provisioner, because we do see a lot of requests, right, for adding this type of metadata per snapshot or per PVC. But what do we want to accept? What do we want to say no? I don't know what is the criteria.
Yeah, I'll have to think. So like, I'll have to think of, you know, all the things that we're using this for and whether they're the kinds of things that could be proposed as a more generic portable feature. But like, I know that at least some of them, the answer will definitely be no. You know, this is just something specific to our implementation that we do, and we want to give people a knob to turn it on and off. And we would never propose that as a portable option. So yeah, I'll think of the ones that maybe could be made portable.
Yeah, I'd love to hear those and kind of work towards those. That would be awesome.
All right, that's it for me.
All right, any other comments on this or on anything else? All right, going once, going twice. All right, you get 15 minutes back in your day. Thank you everyone for your time.